Warm round of applause to welcome our panel of Hello, and thank you all so much for coming. I think the best thing to do to start would be to maybe for each of you to maybe just give me a quick brief about what you do. Josh, want to begin?
Sure, so I'm Josh Rivers. I am a co-founder of Series Q. I like to say co because I don't think anyone can do anything on their own these days. And Series Q is a network of mentorship, learning, and support to empower LGBT entrepreneurs.
Cool. And my mic's on, it's great. Rebecca Fox. I like to say I'm retired. I gave up work last October, so I've done a few contracts in between. That was for all sorts of reasons. One is I'm trans, if you didn't already know. But I also do a lot of work with the LGBT organisations, both in Manchester and in London. Massive LGBT and trans activist. And I used to be an IT director in my last job, so yeah, I'm techie from about that age. Yeah.
I'm Vicky Hunter. I am the COO of Three Beards, an all-round community gal. Three Beards, if you don't know, run a number of events that bring together the startup community and kind of encourage them, nurture them to meet one another, share ideas, and go on and prosper. So that's my
Fantastic.
I just say, I feel like it's weird being in a straight line, so I think we might just like...
I'll just stay where I am.
Yeah, you stood there. Awesome. Oprah opportunities.
Great, right, well, let's get straight in. So, what do you usually think are the kind of primary barriers to greater diversity in the tech sector? I know it's a massive question, but...
I think it's white men. I was one, so, you know. I fundamentally think it is just that kind of, you know, white men want to protect their environment, and it is hard when you're in that environment to say let's have someone else in, whether it's women, someone that's LGBT, someone that's not a white straight man.
I think that people are learning a lot, and I think they're building their own businesses and they're moving very quickly, and they don't always think about diversity, women, people of color, LGBT people, really as needing that much help. They're kind of so focused on building their own thing. I spoke to a recruiter the other day who was like, you know, I really, and an LGBT guy as well, and he was like, I really want to see more black people and, you know, more people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds at the startup, but I'm just working so fast I don't have time to think about it. And I was like, well, black people have to think about it every single day, so you're going to have to catch up a little bit. So, you know, I think they're moving too quickly.
I think it's interesting that we look for kind of what are the problems, what are the barriers. I think it's talking specifically about tech. One of the things that keeps coming up time and time again is skill set. For right or for wrong, I think definitely for wrong, there's stereotypes within our education system that dissuade girls from going into technical positions. And there is so much happening now. GeekGirl is doing a great job of it, Girls Who Code, those kind of groups are trying to get more girls, more role models we were talking about earlier, to get girls into technical skills, which then will filter into girls going into tech positions, but it's not going to happen overnight.
But also tech isn't just coding. It says marketing and design and creativity, and so I think there's this kind of illusion that you have to be a coder to work in tech. And I mean, I took one of the Decoded's one-day coding courses, and they were like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know, I want to put a unicorn on the landing page. And even that for me was a stretch, and I was having fun. And so I don't think everyone is necessarily designed to be a coder or to, you know, do something really kind of like, that's how I view it. I'm like, oh, it's really stressful, but we don't communicate. There's actually a whole raft of things to be doing.
And it's not just the creative stuff. You know, it's project managers, it's people who want to do business analysis, all those kind of jobs too. That you know, we just need to make sure we get more diverse.
Then how do we break down those barriers? What is it? What is stopping people from kind of understanding that? How do we? I guess, you know, is it a matter of going into schools, so kind of approaching kids at a much younger age and kind of introducing them to kind of very diverse opportunities within the tech sector? What do we do? How do we kind of...
It fundamentally starts at schools, but it needs those role models that are in jobs that basically say, hey, it's okay to be a business analyst or a chief executive. Let's start top. You know, that's a woman or LGBT or whatever else, whatever diverse or black. You know, and then bringing that, relating back to school, saying, hey, have you seen that person? That's you in 20 years' time or 30 years' time, and then develop them at school, and that's not happening as much as it should do.
Yeah, I mean, my bugbear is that the few fabulous examples we have of role models in the industry aren't necessarily stepping up to the plate to take responsibility, ownership of the responsibility they have to help a new generation of people. If it makes you uncomfortable that someone might be looking up to you, good, because you have a responsibility and you need to step up to the plate.
Which then brings me on to quotas, which we have briefly discussed before. I mean, I describe them as an imperfect solution to an imperfect world. What part do you think they have to play? I mean, you say we need these role models. Currently, we don't have enough. Right. Are quotas the way of getting people just into those positions so that you have those role models there, and then we go from there?
I hate quotas because I'm just imagining a picture. Okay, everyone gather around for a picture. Do we have our 3 black eyes? We have our 4. Where's our trans? Yeah, there she is. Yeah, still transitioning. So sorry, And then when you take a picture and post it on your website, the whole thing. It's like affirmative action in the States. It's like it's great to get a black person at a great Ivy League university, but if they don't see any of the black people when they get there, their success. There was a report about a study done on it. Their success. Is vastly reduced.
I don't support that view.
Fine.
We are going to disagree on this. So I do think we need quotas. I think people do need to stick to be reasoned with when they don't have enough women. And if there's no consequence for no target, then how are we ever going to get there? And just kind of saying things are okay as they are is fundamentally wrong. And then if you look at the diversity of organisations, and I don't know the stats, maybe you've got them somewhere, but if we look at specifically, and I'm going to talk about women in tech. Yes, organisations like Google, was it 34% of their employees were women? And then you break it down to how many of the women work in the tech part, it's literally just a fraction of that. And it's fundamentally changing people's mindset, saying we need to change have targets, have quotas, have diversity across all departments.
As you said earlier, Josh, you said things moving so quickly in the tech sector that I guess people aren't kind of thinking about diversity. It's kind of, the company's expanding very fast. That's great because diversity is coming in the back of people's mind.
Yeah.
Surely quotas then are a way, an imperfect solution of saying, you've got to think about it.
They're
it's
not
good enough.
We have to get people, it's like with unconscious biases. People are like, I'm going to take all the names off my CV. It's fabulous. What do you do when you see them? You think, unconscious biases only happen on a piece of paper. So, quotas might get people in the door, but how do we educate the people who had to use those quotas in the first place to understand they have unconscious biases to get them over it, because that's how progress is actually genuinely made. The civil rights movement is a great example of that. It's like you have to put a black person next to a white person and say, see, he's not going to attack you. But then also, he's not lesser than you, right? LGBT people, women are not less smart, trans people are not less accomplished at anything, so we have to do more. So quotas aren't the answer, right? That's not where we end up. Right, quotas might be a really great starting point, but we certainly shouldn't be relying on them to do all the work for us.
Piece for the people that are responsible for the quotas.
Yeah.
There's no point in saying to somebody who is not aware of their own bias that they have to go and fill these quotas. Because then they're going to just feel overwhelmed and completely lost on how to recruit for a more diverse team.
Sure, and they also might not have any impetus, right? So ingenuity comes when you're thinking about solutions to a problem, and tech is so good at that, right? We've got so many amazing solutions to so many problems. And so I have yet to see a recruiter who's building his pipeline for the future by partnering with low socioeconomic schools or neighborhoods to teach them skills. These kids are going to get out of school and be like, who's that recruiter? Yes, maybe he'll help you find a job. They're not relationship building in that way, improving their worth.
But it's not just recruiters though, Josh, it's big corporations that have the money they can invest in local communities to change the way people think, and actually get that, in 10, 20 years time, back to having a much more diverse workforce, certainly in tech, but just maybe across the board as well. So
I think if I were a straight white man right now, I'd be very nervous. About my future. She changed,
So again, this kind of goes on from what you both just saying there, but what would you say to kind of the heads of big companies or to some kind of starting a new company, new startup, or even well-established businesses? What would you advise them to do now? What practical solutions can people implement to improve diversity within their company?
I would actually talk to the diverse people and convince them not to work for less diverse companies. That's my kind of like hard-headed, aggressive approach. Is that
wow, really get feeling. Be aware.
Yeah, beware the plunderers. But Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote a book about that. You know, beware the plunderers. And like, you have such an incredible amount of talent and ingenuity and creativity. Who are you giving that talent to? Who are you working for? Who are you giving all those hours to? If it's not a person who cares about diversity or wants to see you succeed or wants to see people who look like you or from your background succeed, don't give them all your talent. Go do your own thing. There's plenty of people out there who want to see other people thrive, and those who don't deserve you.
Are you saying these people that leave an organisation because it's not diverse enough, you think the companies that aren't diverse will just fall away and fade away because they're not going to be profitable?
I think they'll get the idea that they're not attracting the best talent.
I'd rather go and work for an organisation that isn't diverse just to go, hey, I'm here, you know, and drive that through, you know, be that actually, you know, I get what you're saying, you know, you have to go to work to enjoy yourself and earn money, and actually I think people that come from diverse communities, you know, go back to that responsibility. You have a sense of responsibility if you're confident enough to go in and say, "Hey, I want to make a difference and
create change from within."
And just building on that, I think organisations that want to encourage diversity, you need to be showing diverse people as role models. And I get your point about you know 3 black people, 1 trans person, 2 gay people, you know, and the rest of the people in the organisation as a photograph. But that's a good thing in some ways because we're showing that is a diverse organisation, which is going to make it build even more.
And also, I think it's quite easy for us to sit and victimise the white male, but it'd be interesting to see how many white males are in the room. Put your hands up.
Can you get out?
We should be celebrating the fact that people are open to talk about it.
I should have been more clear. Like, if you're an older white male, like, not yet, sorry, you, sir. You're in trouble.
Yes. That's the problem.
No, I think there's, in my head I have this image of the guys with the cigars.
It's
like,
the picture. You just talked about the picture earlier about where you have the tick box solution. You know, where's my black guy, where's my, you know, just get everyone in and take a picture of it. But what you're actually saying is if you're a white guy, then you're not diverse. But that person probably has a lot to say about diversity, a lot of questions to ask about diversity. And it's those people that we should celebrate because those are the ones that will be able to help make change.
The people in this room that are white male, that are being educated.
Sure, I guess it's just that we shouldn't compare our marker shouldn't be this organization who through their own impetus is not championing diversity. That's my point, right? Because there at some point along the line, black people, LGBT people, women learned that we're less than these people, and that is to what we should, you know what I mean. Look to aspire. Thank you. Where does that work?
But it took Sheryl Sandberg. She's a woman. She's working at Google, and only when she was pregnant did she realise that there was not enough facilities for pregnant women to have parking. It's in the first 3 chapters of Lean In, or read the first 3 chapters. You don't need to read the rest. It is true. Everything that needs to be said is in the first 3 chapters. The rest is also good. But she walked in, and she had the position and the influence to go in and say, "We need to make this change." So that's what I'm saying, we shouldn't discredit white males that have come here today, or that maybe that other people will go away from this event and talk to husbands, fathers, whatever. There's a multiplier effect here. And those people are in the position where they can go, oh, hang on, maybe that's not okay, and they'll be able to facilitate that change.
What you're saying is diversity needs allies.
Yeah.
And every single minority without diversity. I absolutely love trans allies because they're the people that are going to say, hey, it's okay for Rebecca to be trans. What's wrong with that? Just like as you said, the movements in America, it changed when white people walked alongside black people. It changed. And the same with LGBT and gay men, when straight people walked alongside gay men and said, when we had a massive issue of gay stigmatization in this country about HIV and AIDS, it only changed when straight people said, that's okay, it's not a problem. We have to have our allies. And by the way, white males are the allies of the diversity.
But also women are allies to LGBT people, Absolutely. To people of color, so I just think too much focus is placed on this very small number of white males who, yes, are in positions of influence. That's great, go use your influence, but their influence does not take away from our own individual influence as people, and therefore we shouldn't be waiting for them to give us permission or to start a diversity initiative for us. We can build our own businesses, our own companies, we can do it ourselves. It just so happens that we might have some fabulous white people in the audience who want to help us do that. please help us do that. But
Absolutely.
if you're a person of color or minority or a marginalized person, there's no barrier to stopping you doing your own thing.
Yeah,
that's my point.
And so at the moment, what are you seeing? Where are the most kind of exciting and innovative kind of things and companies at the moment that are really addressing this issue of diversity and doing a lot to promote diversity and to create this? I guess what we're really drawing here is this kind of inclusive conversation and the importance of having a very open dialogue that says we want everyone on board and ears are open, we want to hear how we can do that. What sort of practices and companies are you seeing now that you think are really leading the way in this way of thinking?
The bit I really love and I'm praising on the charity called Spark, which is a big trans celebration, a bit like Trans Pride. And fundamentally, I get to work with lots of organisations like Barclays Bank, like Lloyds Bank, like Asda's, where they've got LGBT. I've got to look at specifically LGBT, but they've got groups for people of colour, they've got groups for women. Having those groups in those big organisations makes a difference. It gives them a voice, a bigger voice than the individual in those organisations of thousands. I think things like that are really, really important to do.
I think Suki Sendhu and the team at Outstanding and Upstanding are doing some amazing work. So for those who don't know, Outstanding is an organization that, I guess effectively a recruitment agency, that champions, celebrates, and promotes LGBT people in the corporate world. So they're doing a lot working with companies like Barclays and the Financial Times to really highlight those leaders, but then also to crucially connect those leaders with young people like them so that they can mentor them. So, like I said earlier, you have a responsibility. So Outstanding is doing a really great job. And Upstanding celebrates Black and minority ethnic people in business as well. And so Suki's in charge of that. I think it's great work.
It may seem like a really obvious choice, but from the industry that I come from, Geek Girls, I mean, the fact that we're all here today, they put on this incredible conference. They're really at the forefront of everything that's going on in the scene. Lots of people know to recommend them to anybody new coming to the scene. Like, if you want help with this, you want access to learning, access to great networks. Like, Geek Girls do a great job. So I know that sounds like I'm sucking up, but
Geek Girls, great group.
Love you.
Great to know. I guess with gender and ethnicity, we've become much better at saying, as we were saying earlier, it's much easier to say, and I know you don't like quotas, but there need to be more women, for example, on boards. You can better say, right, we're doing, a company can say, we've got half our board made up of women. It's easier to monitor. But with, things like sexuality, it's a bit more difficult because maybe people don't feel as comfortable coming out as gay or whatever they are, or however they identify. So I guess, what kind of practices can we do to make sure that those sorts of people are, feeling confident enough to come forward and self-identify, so that companies can make that issue and say we are really doing more to encourage to get more LGBTQ people in our company and to promote them. What kinds of stuff can they do? Do you think it's important? So I know again, I think it was Tim Cook who came out as gay in 2014. So he's the Apple's CEO. Is it important for people like him to come out?
What took you so long? Why did it take so long?
I think I'm 30, and I know. I'm only just coming to terms with my own shame as a gay man, and growing up in a world that has been terribly homophobic, right? And so I think, we're kind of going through all of our own personal battles. Women have felt it, everyone's felt it, this kind of inherent shame about being who you really are. So I think we have to go, and we've got to create environments that are safe for people, like you said, and I think we do that by, I was doing some work for diversity role models, and this kid asked me, what if I have a friend who, he's like 13, what if I have a friend who I'm pretty sure is gay, but obviously I can't tell him that I think he's gay, but I want him to know it's totally cool if he is gay. And I was like, well, you know what, like my family did, just start talking about how much you love gay people. How much you love Start talking about how funny you think Jack is from Will and Grace. And these are horrible stereotypes effectively because they don't apply to everyone. But we have to engender that kind of safeness, right? Because even if they're like, oh, that's so gay, which gay kids will ultimately do first, you'll be that person that they then come to. And I think the same really applies to work, right? It's like, you don't have to have an out LGBT employee to say, hey guys, we're going to the Pride Parade, right? You don't have to have that, right? You don't have to have a black employee to say, hey, we're going to partner with this neighborhood and we're going to give our time back on the weekend to get on board. Leaders have such an amazing opportunity to really make people feel good without singling out people that they see.
And it does start at the top. Tim Cook, I was going to look, it must have been incredibly hard to come out and say, hey, I'm gay in 2014. It would have been even harder in 2010 and even harder in 2000. It would have been really, really hard, especially when people, I think knew he was gay, but it just wasn't in the press. It just didn't confirm it.
But then when he did come out, not saying he shouldn't have done, but on social media, a lot of the reaction was people questioning kind of why would he do this? In a way, I guess, highlighting that maybe people would think that we shouldn't really care what's someone's sexual orientation. And maybe those sorts of people voicing that opinion were thinking, kind of, we're beyond caring about what someone's sexual. I don't know, we're not, but we're beyond. We shouldn't really care. Should we care? And how do we care in a way that that's kind of getting over all prejudices, but saying, it doesn't matter, but great, come forward.
This is what we were talking about earlier. Like, we're very confident examples of people, and we have to have a voice for those that maybe don't, for whatever reason. Maybe it's lack of confidence, maybe it's that they've come from a background where their diversity, if they're gay and they come from a very homophobic background or a religion that won't allow it. It's those people that will really struggle and will really suffer. So if someone like Tim Cook was very comfortable with his sexuality, but by saying it publicly in the sort of international news, helped people that were quietly suffering, then that is the reason for doing it.
I don't know where I'm going to go with the conversation, but fundamentally, I look at my own self. I've been in and out of being someone that's on the trans spectrum since my mid-20s. And in the last couple of years, this is me every day, and that was an incredibly hard decision to make. Jacking in my white male privilege, it was, now I identify as female, trans, and lesbian, and I've gone from that to where I'm now. But you know what, I was happy before, I'm really, really super happy now, and that bringing your true self to work, for those invisible diversities, is such an important thing to do, and I think it does need role models. People say that where the diversity isn't visible, they've got to come forward and say, hey, I'm one of these too, whatever that is.
I also think that colorblind and LGBT blindness is like, shut up. It's like, obviously you can tell that I'm black, right? It's like, so I don't see color, right? It's like,
yes,
right? Because you have two eyes, I can tell that color doesn't work on you, we can tell. And so I think when it becomes a thing that separates people, when you can say, I don't want to hang out with her because she's a lesbian, right? Which I think gay guys are really bad at doing. But that's honestly, I'm just generalizing. But, I want to celebrate that you look different to me. I think that's an amazing thing. It's an amazing conversation starter. When you don't recognize someone's name, where is that from? Is an amazing question to ask. And I think that we don't need to be colorblind. We just need to have an openness and understand that there are people who have different experiences to us. I think the same thing is true for people from different socioeconomic backgrounds. You've experienced life an entirely different way than I have. To me, that's fascinating, right? And so diversity is really powerful in that because I get to learn about all these different experiences to my own, which hopefully make me a more well-rounded person, but also make someone else feel like they have a connection to somebody else in this world.
I must say, I wouldn't wish being trans on anyone, but it's great. I love it. You just meet so many different, diverse people, and my learning's just gone from I've just learned so much about different people, and I treat people in such different ways because I identify as trans. It's great. I love it.
I think it comes down to nurturing tolerance. I'd like to tell a really quick story. I have one of my best friends is gay. He's also a super open, tolerant, wonderful person. He just loves fun. He's always bringing up, getting people involved with all the fun that's going on in his life. I was at a party and I found him crying with having a conversation with somebody that I knew that he knew. She is Christian, and she was going through a stage in her life where she was really struggling with her faith. She has faith, she's been brought up that way, but she was starting to see that some of the learning, some of the teachings that she was getting through her faith didn't match, it didn't fit into her life. And she was saying to him, I'm really sorry, I don't think we could be friends. And that's why he was crying. I mean, that's a horrible thing, A, for her to have said, and B, to be experiencing. I went into completely defensive friend, and I was like, you need to get out of here. I was not being tolerant, I was being protective. However, he was far, far better than me in that situation, because now, and this was maybe 3 years ago, they're still incredibly good friends, because he said, look, I will answer any question you want to ask. But let's get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Ask me anything. Ask me about why I like boys, what I do with them in bed. If you need to ask uncomfortable questions, ask me.
Is that because she didn't know herself?
I don't know what that situation was, but he was able to open the conversation, and he was also able to ask questions about her religion, and actually got her questioning and thinking, and gave her a space where she can go, okay, so this is what I've been taught, this is what I believe, these are who my friends are, how does that all fit into who I am? And she's gone through a really big journey, and she's left London to go and find more headspace, and she's doing different things, and now she's a far more tolerant, wonderful person. But she couldn't have got there had he had my reaction of just...
And that's really interesting, because I think that kind of feeds into what you were saying earlier, Josh, about there's people pretending to be colourblind, gender blind. In a way, you're kind of silencing yourself, because you're saying, maybe people do have lots of questions, and I think you're totally right. The pathway to tolerance is asking those questions in a kind of environment which you say, I'm not here to judge or to kind of project any of my culturally cultivated prejudices on you at all. I want to know, I want to understand. And if you say, I don't see any difference, nothing at all, everyone's great, we're all going really well, not only are you ignoring history and the historical prejudices, but you're not really trying to learn and move forward.
But I also think that we do have responsibility as people to tell our stories as well. I only told my coming out story for the first time since it happened this year. And I realized, because I had never written it down, I had never spoken to anyone about what I went through when I was coming out and realizing that I was gay. And the first time I was telling that story, I boiled up and started crying again, because I just hadn't revisited it. It's this thing that happens, you put it in a box, you shut that box, you lock it, you put a glittery thing over it, and you put it in the corner, and you're everything is fine, right? But actually, how are people to know that everything is not okay for LGBT people if LGBT people aren't talking about their experiences, if people of color aren't coming forward and saying, I do feel prejudiced in these situations, or I do see that over there to be an impossible goal? Because actually, the people will go, what are you talking about? That's ridiculous. How can I help? And so I think we also don't give people the chance. And I know now I'm circling back on the white man comment. I'm okay, allies. We don't give people the chance to help us because we're trying to protect ourselves.
But it goes back to role models that, someone's, seen the black person over there, seen the trans person, seen the gay person, seen the woman in those, those roles. It's the role models that you can kind of say, well, you can be that too. And, what's stopping you?
Yeah, because I think that women and just marginalized people in general tend to might pull up the ladder behind them, I got here, and I'm going to protect my position here, but it's you've just pulled up the ladder and left everyone else behind. So, yeah, I'm building my profile, and boom, suck it.
Guys, I'm going to have to jump in here, very sorry. We're going to, in the interest of cracking the whip and keeping on time at the moment. And I'm conscious that we probably do want to have a couple of questions to this panel, because it's a super, super interesting topic. So, yeah, you can take the question. But maybe
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Keep it snappy.
There's a question right back. At the back. Sorry, I'm making you run the furthest way you can possibly have to go.
Yeah. We're having this water thing where we're all sharing each other's water.
Nobody wants my water.
It's called panel bonding.
Yeah, I
It
didn't want to catch
works very
well.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned the pipeline again of getting people in, but how do you keep people in? Because the attrition rate is really high, and we're not actually talking about that. And I think that's the big thing we need to fix.
Was that question, once you get someone that's diverse in the organisation, how do you maintain the organisation? But they're leaving really quickly. I think, can I answer that one? So I think once you get someone that's diverse, I think you need to start celebrating them in the organisation, and as much as Josh said you don't want a photograph of them, you do need to promote them and actively promote them and celebrate the fact they're in there. Go out of your way to make sure they feel welcome, rather than just saying, hey, that's just an employee. If they're just in a minority in the organisation of men or women, or if they're gay, you've got to promote them and push them. And then get them to come in. The biggest thing about getting people from diverse backgrounds is if you just recruit within your own network, it's going to get people just like yourself. So if you've got someone, you need to tap into the network too. So just encourage them to bring more people in that are diverse.
Can I just interject? Because based on what you've all been saying, it's networking is networks are so important, it seems, for people of kind of, you know, people from a kind of diverse background being part of something, a network that is kind of, I guess, a support network. They can then give them the confidence. And maybe being much more
Serious Q.
I was about to say serious Q.
Name drop.
But something that does enable, and you know, and so you have a kind of broader kind of group of people with very different experiences, and maybe more experience. You can say, okay, great, you just have hired this new company. Now, this, you know, you need to say you want this amount of pay. You need to really assert yourself in this way. So you have these kind of allies, this group of allies. It seems to me that would be very kind of important and integral.
Yeah, it is. If I may, I think it was my mentor used to work at Bain, and he helped set up their kind of LGBT group. And after that, their retention was much more because these people are having what feels like a very singular experience, right? And so they mess something up or they miss a target and they're beating themselves up, as gay people and gay in the broadest sense are prone to do already. I'm so shit at this, I can't do this, I'm wrong. And then they're flying the coop because they think they can't do it anymore and they want to go do something that feels more them. So these internal groups become really important as a network of support and encouragement.
Is it not worth also touching upon sort of the future of work and the way in which the workplace is changing? Because it's more relevant to women, but women drop out of the workplace at a certain age because they want to go and have families. So they're somewhat...
Also, that's fathers will have families too, so it's not...
It's just about to say, so like there is more being done with maternity leave. Paternity leave is now something that people have heard of. There's still more to be done with those. I was reading something the other day, and obviously I can't remember any facts or figures from it because I'm hopeless at that. But I think it was Canada. They are encouraged to have a year's maternity leave, and paternity leave is also a lot longer. And that is normal. And once that becomes the norm, you're far happier in knowing that you're going to have the first year with your baby to nurture your family. And then when you're ready, you can go back to work, and that you'll be welcomed with open arms. Because I have a brother and sister, both married, both with children. My sister-in-law has been, you know, she's very much gone down the career route, took very little time off, and I think finds family life quite hard because her kids are just always bouncing off the walls. I mean, there's obviously many factors in there. My sister has been a full-time mum for the last 3 years. She's got 2 young kids, very, very happy, excelling at school, but she feels the frustration of, how can I now go back to work after this much time off? It's just not, it's not encouraged in our society.
There are initiatives, I can't remember the name of them, but specific for that, where they find women that have had career breaks to bring up children, and then they try and put them in place. It's like, has anyone heard of this group?
Post-pregnancy placement.
Yeah, I've heard it on the radio. It's just like, wow, that is just amazing. I think more of those, absolutely, it would be fantastic.
And I think we are seeing more of that. It's just not happening overnight. So hopefully those infrastructures will help retention.
Should we do another question for you? Dad, and then Queen Swinton.
I just wanted to say, quite often the conversation around diversity has a very negative tone to it, and maybe you could each give an example or a story where love triumphed over fear.
Oh, great. So, if I may, so I was working at Second Home, and we hired this guy who happened to be gay. It was an accident, and I was going to say that because we didn't have like an initiative for more.
There were no quotas.
No, people were actually surprised there weren't more gay people there, but. I heard from one of the other team members about 6 months into him working there that he had come out to his family, and I was like, oh, that's brilliant. And they're like, well, he came out to his family because of you. He has seen you being yourself and being quite confident. He had never seen someone be like comfortable in their own skin that way, and it gave him the courage to come out. And I was like, oh, I don't want to be involved in that, right? Because that feels really heavy to like that someone's watching you, like, and people are relying on you to be the best version of yourself. But I, came around and I went and thanked him and asked him if I could help, and now I'm kind of mentoring him a little bit. So I think we have to be our authentic selves. We have to feel comfortable being who we are. There are people watching. There are people who need us to be ourselves. So it's even less about us and more about another generation of kids who will go on and change the world. And world peace.
If you repeat me, I have a question. Sorry, can Can you rephrase?
I mean, your story kind of answered.
Yeah, cool. I'm done. I've got that story.
I suppose for me, one of my jobs I left. I was out as trans, but not presenting as female. And I left, and everyone knew I was going off to be a girl. It's great. And but I know that then 6 months later someone did transition work, and for me that was I kind of hope I did influence that in some respect, that someone did take their truth off to work. So yeah, is that a happy story? Hope so.
Yeah, big positive role models and things. Do we have time for one more question?
Yes.
Oh, great. Man at front.
But in fabulously colored, is that a burgundy? It's great.
That's definitely very burgundy. Autumnal colours.
Sorry, if I may, I would just a bit more of a comment than really a question. So I've been managing data science teams for the last kind of 6 or 7 years. And I just think that there's also kind of a slightly different angle from the conversation that is just happening, where like having a diverse team is more about like the managerial people or whoever kind of making that decision, being tolerant of other people. That's a very important angle for sure. But there's also another angle which makes a huge difference, which is that more diverse teams are really more performant. Right? Like in the teams that I've managed, when the team itself was diverse, when you had like at least like 40% women in the team, even in like I'm talking like engineering or data science, like the performance of the team was much better. And so even kind of now when I'm kind of trying to build a team, like this is what I'm going for. And so I think also if there's some education that can happen in companies, because there have been studies out there, like there have been, I'm pretty sure there have been a couple of Harvard Business Review studies also out there showing that actually diverse team is better performance. Might also kind of remove a bit that stigma, because like I've heard it in some places where it's like, oh, it's okay, like he's diversity higher, which is actually like the other opposite, which you don't want to end up with. Right?
So I guess to make a question out of that comment is how important is it to make the business case for diversity?
Well, the first thing I wanted to correct you on, sorry, is the word tolerant, right? I don't need you to tolerate me, I don't stink, right? So it's acceptance, right? Accepting that other people are different. I think that that someone might tolerate us is perhaps not the correct word. Look, I think it's the business case for diversity. I think the Harvard Business Review, that article you were talking about, she was actually saying you can't actually make a business case for diversity because some of the most undiverse companies in the world are also the most profitable. And so, but not to say that diversity isn't something that will increase your profit margins. She was saying that if you're looking at it on paper, which unfortunately we have to look at it financially, which is fucked, but if you're looking at it like that, it's not enough just to say having diverse people will make us more profitable. The teams perform better, right? They feel better, they're happier, which might then lead to better profits. But just a business case, there's plenty of cases to not say, I mean, you wouldn't because you don't want to be a dick, but you could just as easily turn around and say, well, our team is beating our targets. I don't need to add any more diversity to my team.
Change how we quantify success. Yeah.
I think your point is, I think that's really great, but fundamentally success is making profits, because without profits you can't build and grow. But I think there are other targets that organisations should measure, or there should be absolute diversity to say we've got a happy, cohesive organisation.
There's a burning question.
Burning short question.
Okay, I'll try and make it as short as possible. Thanks guys, that was such a brilliant panel. I guess my question was, having worked across advertising and music and tech, which are both kind of, which are all three kind of quite intense white male kind of environments, highly sexualised environments, often especially in music and especially in advertising. And I've been someone that's tried to speak out against misogyny and things like that as much as I can and have the energy to, and other kinds of discrimination when I've seen it. But quite often you don't find allies in certain organisations, and I guess I'm just wondering, like, what do you do in big organisations and the smaller ones when you don't find allies? And do you have any tips or any advice or any other stories?
Leave. That goes to my point earlier. Why are you working there? It's like we have to be happy. We go through enough shit, right? That we don't then want to go to work and feel objectified or disrespected. I can't imagine that's good for anyone, and the more you're at work thinking about anything else except your job, you're not performing at your best, right? So companies have an interest in creating these comfortable workspaces because you need your team to be focused on the job at hand, not worrying about whether they need to change their pronouns or if someone's going to grab their tits, right? So I would leave.
I would end as much as I said, look to your organisation and fight, being diversity and fighting for your rights is exhausting, and you said it takes a lot of energy, and there's a point where you go, hey guys, I've had enough, and you find that the best way to do it is you find another job that's significantly better than what you're in and go to it and then just say to hell with you all guys, I've got a better job, screw you. So.
I agree with you guys.
I mean, can I just say, I was pitching for a job as well, and I wanted to set out kind of like an LGBT manifesto, as it were. And I said, I was speaking to the recruiter, and I was like, I really want to put this forward, right? Because I think it's really important that the suppliers that we work with are motivated by us, people giving them money to increase their LGBT awareness. And the recruiter was like, well, let's try to keep it on the commercial angle. I didn't get the job subsequently. But do I care? No, because this person wasn't interested in my point of view, which was that in order for us to be really successful at this job, we need to make sure that we're doing good for others. And people who don't follow that, I don't work for or want to work for. So I would do that.
I know you want us to finish with just one thing. If we are using recruiters, don't forget that recruiters, that we're the customer. And if we're paying a recruiter to recruit someone, we're going to ask for all the things you want. Say you want a diverse set of CVs coming forward. Even say, please don't put the name on the CV. Do that kind of stuff. And demand it from your recruiters. You're paying their wages, so.
Can I just say very quickly, sometimes you can find quiet allies though. I used to work at a think tank, and it was forward-looking, 21st century enlightenment, I absolutely loved it. But gender just hadn't really crossed their thought. Gender kind of, the importance of feminism. I used to constantly say to my boss, it'd be really interesting to do a research project on kind of how we improve gender diversity in companies or whatever, or just what feminism is saying now, 21st century. You kind of roll his eyes, we're all about equality, but seriously, oh my god, don't talk about feminism. And everyone there was forward thinking. They probably would have said, yeah, totally up for gender equality, but it just there wasn't really a conversation going on. And then I wrote one blog piece that said, let's debunk these gender myths and kind of threw in a bit of Simone de Beauvoir, made myself sound very clever, not that I am. And it really, it was based, it was just kind of unpicking, it was very, very basic, just unpicking gender stereotypes about masculinity and femininity and saying how damaging they are for both men and women, and this idea of boys don't cry, etc. And kind of putting it in words, but then we put it on the website, everyone read it, and I had so many people, colleagues come up to me and say, I really, really hadn't thought of things in that way. And these were liberal, left, forward-thinking individuals who I kind of just assumed that they were thinking that anyway, and they really weren't. But having written that, and then it kind of gave me a bit of traction, and people said, God, you really have actually genuinely opened my eyes to that. I just hadn't thought of things that way. Simone de Beauvoir, wow, what a woman, I haven't heard of her. I was like, whoa, okay. But so I do think sometimes, it sounds like you're doing those already, but I do think sometimes it is just actually kind of awakening people to things that they make, just to think about things in a way they haven't done previously. And it can be, I found, really straightforward in a way that I was so shocked by. I just hadn't had that conversation, hadn't opened up that dialogue that people get. And then as soon as I did, everyone, and now, left, but now, gender is seriously a hot topic there. I know, but I wasn't like, it didn't get me in trouble. But anyway, but yes, I do think it's a change thing. Anyway.
On that super positive note, I think we can wrap up and thank the panel.